elections. Then in the second half hour, noted economist Dr. Rob Shapiro joins us for a status update on the state of the economy. As always, our crackerjack executive producer, Mark Grimaldi, joins us today to keep the show on time and running online. Before we get to our first guest, we're going to play this clip. This is Lawrence O'Donnell from MSNBC talking about Michael Cohen's testimony today in the Trump hush money trial.
Well, you know it's the star witness when District Attorney Alvin Bragg comes in and stays for the entire session. I've seen Alvin Bragg come in the courtroom before, but he usually leaves as soon as there's a break. He didn't do that today. Let me just read to you from my notebook the most important thing that the jury heard today. He wasn't thinking about Melania. This was all about the candidate. And that is the essence of Michael Cohen's testimony as it stands now. That was Michael Cohen describing Donald Trump's attitude about paying off Stormy Daniels, about the urgency of paying off Stormy Daniels. Immediately after the Access Hollywood tape came out, he described the effect of the Access Hollywood tape as catastrophic, meaning catastrophic to the campaign. He said repeatedly, "I was following directions." And the most repeated line of Michael Cohen's testimony was, "Just take care of it." And that's Michael Cohen quoting Donald Trump about Stormy Daniels and several other situations similar to the Stormy Daniels situation.
That was Larry O'Donnell from MSNBC with his take on Michael Cohen's dramatic testimony this morning and this afternoon in the Trump hush money trial. Our guest in this half hour is Sarah Jones, who's editor-in-chief of Politicus USA. Sarah, welcome back to Deadline DC with Brad Bannon. It's always great to have you on.
It's so great to be back, Brad, and I'm so glad you asked me, and I'm really glad to see you at the Hill again, so enjoying your columns there. I'm
glad to be at the Hill again. And by the way, if you want to read thank you, Sarah, for setting this up. If you want to read my columns in the Hill, the best way to do that is to go to muckrack.com. That's muckrack, all one word, muckrack.com/Brad Bannon. You can read all my columns, including my column on the Trump hush money trial, if you go there. Sarah, we heard Michael Cohen, Donald Trump's former fixer, testify against Trump today. This follows testimony last week from porn star Stormy Daniels. Mike, this is a two-part question for you. First of all, will the Daniels and Cohen testimonies have impact on the jury in the Trump hush money trial? And two, will it have impact on the larger court of public opinion?
So to your first question, it's always hard. This isn't being televised. We can't see the jury. We don't know what's in their mind. I have the people that are in the room, that are in the overflow room, are saying that Stormy Daniels did a really good job. And today, Michael Cohen surprised people because he was very calm, he was respectful, and he did put these pieces together that the prosecution needed him to put together. So if they're inclined to believe those two people, then, that's great for the prosecution. But in the larger context of the court of public opinion, something stood out to me today, which is really saying something, given Donald Trump's history with women and his horrible, he's an adjudicated rapist. Yet today, we've heard something so damaging to him as a candidate. First, Michael Cohen was testifying and saying that it was Melania Trump's idea to present the Access Hollywood tape as locker room talk, which of course it isn't, but that seemed to work for them back then.
Funny, I've been in a lot of male locker rooms, and I've never heard guys talk like that.
Well, I'm glad to hear that because it does smear all men. But I don't, even if when men are being, or any human is being crude, that's not the same thing as bragging about sexual assault. It's like these are two different things. But then this is the real cherry on the cake to me today. Cohen said that Trump said to delay the payments to Stormy Daniels until after the election because the story wasn't relevant if he won. And if he lost, I really don't care. He said he doesn't care about Melania. He said he wouldn't be on the market for very long. So
Yeah, well, again,
basically,
his indifference to his wife
yeah.
and his hostility towards women in general
Mhm.
has come out loud and clear in this trial.
Yeah.
And I haven't checked it lately, but last time I remember looking at the gender gap in the national polls in the Biden Trump race, there was a gender gap in Biden's favor among women by close to 20 points. Now, of course, the bad news is there was a gender gap among men in Trump's favor by about 20 points, which evened things out. But I'm certainly the testimony in this trial is likely to make Trump's problems with women even more compelling than they are now.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's one thing, certainly not somebody that I would want to have dinner with or anything, but many people are able to justify and ignore a lot of the stuff that's already been out there. But the way he's treating his own wife like disposable garbage is absolutely repugnant. I mean, and I think that a lot of women, you're talking about these suburban women, they're married white women in suburbia, that's going to hit home in a very different way than some of the things that have happened already. So I just think that's really damaging to him. If people hear about it the way that it hit me, because when I read that, I was absolutely stunned. Now we don't know. The other thing is, so if we zoom out, what's going to happen here with this whole case and in the court of public opinion. It's hard to believe that the man is on trial for hush money to a porn star for an affair, and this didn't impact him with voters, right?
Well, that's what drives me crazy, Sarah. In fact, that's the subject of my new column in the Hill. Uh, it's amazing, given everything that's come up for Trump, even in the last couple of months. His campaign for a second term should be deader than Christy Noam's dog. But yet again, he's running a very competitive race with President Biden. Do you think this trial and the revelations from this trial are going to make any difference?
Well, I think they might with independent voters, and those are the people that Trump needs to win. But when we get into the presidential race, I also wanted to, talk about some of the exit polling in Ohio, and you're really seeing some Republicans peeling off from him in a way that seems like it could be significant for him in the general election if they continue this. So I do think that I think it's going to have resonance with independent voters. Now, how many people's opinions aren't already set about Donald Trump? You and I are in this every day.
About
And
85 or 90%, pretty much.
right. So that
Anyway, we're
there's
going to
this
talk
huge
more
window.
about the presidential race, but we've got to take this break first. Our guest in this half hour on Deadline DC with Brad Bannon is Sarah Jones, who's editor in chief of Politicus USA. And we'll have more conversation about Donald Trump, his trials and tribulations right after this break.
If you came across someone struggling with hunger, how would you recognize them? By their clothes, their age, the way they speak? Would you notice an 8-year-old girl who's not excited?
Welcome back to Deadline DC with Brad Bannon. My guest in this half hour is Sarah Jones, editor-in-chief of Politicus USA. I'm sure you've seen and heard Sarah on the show many times before. We don't keep count, but I would guess that she is one of our most frequent guests, which I'm very glad of. Let me ask you a question that I asked you when we were talking before we went on air. Is the universe surrounding Trump getting more and more crazy every time, or is that just my imagination?
No, it really seems like they are. And I would say that might be a reflection of his internal psychological decompensation. He is under a lot of pressure right now, and he responds to that by being just kind of, I mean, he's unraveling a little bit in public, and the people around him keep pretending that that's fine and it's not happening. And so the more they do that, the crazier everything gets. So you're seeing him say, I think we were talking about this before, mentioning praising Hannibal Lecter. I mean, what kind of person, what kind of political candidate thinks that there's so many other things you could say. Now, does his base care? No, I don't think they do. They don't care what he says. Although it was weird because in that rally that he had in New Jersey, people left early. So, maybe they're not too maybe they're not paying attention. They're just going to vote for him and they don't care what he says because it's a cult. I don't know, but it makes them look even worse to me as like, why are you supporting this person? Are you not? You don't care what they say? It doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't. And excuse the quizzical look on my face because I don't get this. Then the Hannibal Lecter comment, praising Hannibal Lecter for being a great guy. I cringed while I was watching the video of that speech, and he seemed to me to be jumping from Hannibal Lecter to refugees. Does he want someone like Hannibal Lecter to eat I just don't.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense to me.
No, actually, I think you're making a really good connection there because while he's not going to come out and say that, I think there's definitely an effort to attach kind of violence and cruelty, dehumanization to, that's how he does it. He's always managing, like he'll say this and then he looks like he's pivoting, but he's actually, these things are connected in his brain. And that's what we should all be focused on. Why is that connected in his brain?
Yeah, well, and also in that rally in New Jersey, he was endorsed by Lawrence Taylor, former New York Giant, who was perhaps the greatest linebacker in NFL history, and also pleaded guilty to sexual abuse at one point. He also confused Jimmy Carter with Jimmy Connors, the great tennis star. I like both of them, but I don't confuse them. And, it raises questions about Trump's mental acuity. We have to take another break to bring back our radio audience. Our guest in this half hour is Sarah Jones, who is the editor-in-chief of Politicus USA. We'll be back right after this message. Welcome back to Deadline DC with Brad Bannon. And by the way, I have a message for our radio listeners. If you want to watch Deadline DC as well as listen to it, you can see the show at twitter.com/Brad Bannon, on facebook.com/Deadline DC with Brad Bannon /videos, and on YouTube at tinyurl.com/Brad on YouTube. Our guest in this half hour is Sarah Jones, editor-in-chief of Politicus USA. We're here talking about craziness in the Trump universe. Let's talk about the presidential race now, Sarah. Where do you see the presidential race? As I said in the previous block, I can't believe after all the Trump craziness, the trials, and his other tribulations, that he's still competitive with Joe Biden in the presidential race. Although I do see a bit of an uptake for Biden in the national polls, and that perhaps due to the publicity surrounding the Stormy Daniels hush money case. What's your take on the presidential race, Sarah?
Well, I agree. I mean, I think there's several ways to approach this, and there's a lot going on. So number one is, why is this guy even viable? Yeah, you know, that's that's pretty bonkers, and I think it's really troubling. And secondly, there was a really bad poll for Joe Biden. I don't know if it came out today from the New York Times. I'm kind of putting that to the side uh, in lieu of two things. One, the other polls that you mentioned, and number three, there was this exit polling that I think you might find really interesting, and maybe the listeners will. Out of Ohio, of all things, right? So, and maybe this is a bellwether for national results. There's matching data elsewhere, and it's starting to happen even in swing states with closed primaries, like it happened here in Pennsylvania. So you're seeing Republican voters rejecting Trump, and I would say overall, you're at it like 1/5 of the voters.
Yeah.
Right? And that's really interesting. So Mike Madrid from the Lincoln Project said the anti-Trump Republican effort is nearly 3 times what it was in 2020. Now, what that tells me, if you ignore all the noise, that says that those people are either going to now, and then it did break down in that Ohio thing where how many people, I think it was 18% said they wouldn't support Trump in November, 10% said they would be preferring Biden, and 8% said they wouldn't vote for either. So what that says is if those Republicans, that 8% say they stay home, right? That's helpful. If some of them vote for Joe Biden, that's helpful. If the pro-democracy Biden support in this country does their work every day from now until election day, and then after the votes are counted, like everybody's got to stay working, eye on the ball, work. But this is very possible win for Joe Biden, in my opinion. And that's because you're seeing this erosion. I see it on the ground here in Trump country. I do not see the signs outside that, they were up 2016. They stayed up till 2020. They stayed up for 2 years after that. So it's weird that they're not coming back up now. And I just been driving around kind of Western Pennsylvania, and I'm not seeing some of the signs that were there this whole time. We don't know why those are down. So I'm not saying that that directly means that people aren't going to vote for him, but it's a strange thing to watch that erosion of support physically, to see it in these exit polls, and then to watch people walk out of his rally in New Jersey the other night. So I think that he is much more vulnerable, in my opinion, than people are saying that he is, than a lot of pundits want to say, because there's this horse race thing. Now, that doesn't mean that people should relax. He is a threat. If he gets into office, that's it for our democracy, in my opinion. So in no way am I trying to suggest that this is a done deal. It's going to be a fight, and he's going to battle even after the election. We know that. He's going to do everything he can to steal this election. So people have to show up, and they have to vote all the way down the ticket. I mean, that's what's got to happen. But I'm just really surprised at the visible erosion in support for him among his own voters.
Well, you're right, Sarah. If you look at the returns in the Republican presidential primaries, consistently about 1 out of every 5 Republican primary voters is still voting for Nikki Haley, even though she's been out of the presidential race for more than 2 months now. And it's interesting, since the Stormy Daniels trial started, there's been much more speculation about Nikki Haley joining the Trump ticket. And I think what's going on here is a lot of Republican strategists are panicking about especially Donald Trump's standing or lack of standing with women. And I think they're putting pressure on him to pick Haley because they're seeing what's happening in these Republican primaries, and they see how badly Trump is doing with women. And it's not going to get any much better after the Stormy Daniels trial. Also, Trump apparently feels she can bring everything comes with a price for Trump. Feels that a lot of the rich, wealthy donors who supported Haley will support him financially if he brings Haley on the ticket. What do you make of that? Do you think there's a possibility of that? And if there is, do you think it will help Trump?
I don't know. Right after all that came out, then I think Trump denounced it, but his word is worth nothing. So what does that mean? What would that mean for Nikki Haley after everything that she said to get on board with him? What kind of ticket is that? To me, that's really unappealing. I think you're almost losing people. Like, she's appealing to one kind of Republican. He's appealing to the MAGA base. Never the twain shall meet at this point. And I don't think that mixing them together gets them what they think it will. I think that Republicans tend to look at women like the binders full of women, kind of, Mitt Romney moment, where they see us as tokens. And so they're just going to put a woman in there and that's going to get the woman vote. Well, it really doesn't work that way. I don't know about Republican women, some of who, like Nikki Haley, maybe that would work for them, but they're still voting this guy as president who, treats his wives like they're disposable garbage, buried one of them on a golf course, and now is talking about who cares about Melania. Get another one. Now, Melania's not a great person. She's sold out her own friends. She's been with Donald Trump on this journey, but that is not a great look. It just isn't.
Sarah, thank you very much. I predict Haley won't be on the ticket, mainly because the only thing that Donald Trump hates more than an independent thinker is a female independent thinker like Nikki Haley. So
that's true.
I don't think
Yes.
we're going to see that happen.